There was something about listening to another person telling me my story, okay? There was something very, very kind of, I don't know how to explain it to you. It made me feel good.
Well, for Holocaust survivor Oscar Sladek, his new book is better listened to than read. Meet Ossie after the break.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, this past Friday was International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Now, of course, out of the 11 million people that perished in the Holocaust, 6 million of those were Jews. But one family survived, staying one step ahead of the Nazis, all in Slovakia. They actually hid in the Tatras mountains. I sat down with Oscar Sladek, who wasn't even 10 when he and his parents escaped the Nazis. It's not your typical Holocaust story. Ossie just released his book with co-author Corinne Joy Brown. Take a look.
The minute the first book appeared from the printers, I just looked at it and said, okay, that's wonderful. Now I have a book.
That book, Escape to the Tatras, Ossie Sladek's first-hand account of surviving the Holocaust.
Well, first of all, I never dreamed about having a book.
Before turning 10, Ossie and his parents Fritzi and Irina narrowly escaped capture by the Nazis in Slovakia. He recounts the traumatic events in these pages.
I've known the Sladeks for a long time, and there's a comfort level between us that made me feel really ready to take on this kind of project. In addition, my husband is also a Holocaust survivor, so I had intimacy with the subject that prepared me in a way for the breadth of the story.
Corinne Joy Brown helped Ossie tell his story of bravery and perseverance.
After dinner, I used to sit down and write down my memories. At my 80th birthday, my wife Selma, who didn't make it here today, said to me, honey, I got you a real nice gift. So I said, I don't need any gifts, you know. At this age, who needs gifts? So she says, you're going to like this gift. So I said, what is it? She says, well, I hired this lady, who is a wonderful writer, to write your story.
Corinne has made a name publishing other important stories and working as a freelance journalist here in Denver.
One of the most important features about Ossie's book is his uncanny recall and his ability to set the stage. Because if you don't realize what's lost, you can't mourn what went before.
The goal for Ossie, writing a book for his children to know what he went through.
I wrote it as something that I can bequeath to my children.
The goal is for both of them to teach all future generations about the horrors of the past and how to learn the signs before it happens again.
The revelation of his words on the page, I mean, I was reading them typed. I've seen the notebooks, but Ossie has a remarkable command of both the English language and all the other languages. And that in part is why there's a richness of expression.
I had a lot of respect for survivors who were in concentration camps. They had a very difficult life, and surviving, to me, I used to tell them, you know, I respect you and I believe that you are truly a survivor, you know. I survived, but in a very different way than you did. So I had a lot of respect, and I felt like I was the little guy between the big guys, you know? Because really, I mean, their stories were very tragic and heavy, and many of them lost their parents or their brothers, sisters, and so on. I was just lucky that the three of us were able to stick together and survive.
Memories no one wants to relive, but ones that are vital first-hand accounts to lessons that should not be forgotten.
If we don't share this entirety, this genocidal event with every generation, you know, people forget. and they don't see the signs in front of them of hate rising.
Through the generosity of friends and by hiding in the Tatra Mountains bordering Poland and Slovakia, Ossie and his family were able to stay one step ahead.
I relive many of those moments of my experience constantly. The worst part of my year, every year, is winter time. You know, when I look at the mountains, it all comes back to me, you see, because that was the highlight of our survival, is the mountains.
After persevering through the hardships, Ossie has used the lessons of his past to propel him into a fulfilling future.
De las garzas de las rosas.
Part 2 of A Life Full of Music.
De la espuma de las garzas de las rosas.
Coming up after the break.
De las garzas de las rosas y del sol.
In honor of International Holocaust Remembrance Day this past Friday, we sat down with Holocaust survivor Oscar Sladek, who just released his book about how his family survived the Holocaust. Here's part 2 of his story.
De las garzas de las rosas y del sol.
There is life after traumatic experience. When we think of Holocaust victims, so many don't realize that there are survivors who've gone on to become leaders in their community in the fields of education and medicine and science and music, and that debt, you know, there's no way to measure what was lost, but we can certainly say that survivors of these atrocities have been contributors to modern life.
Holocaust survivor Oscar Sladek has taken his pain and spun it into something positive, be it his musical career or his time educating those who will listen.
I really enjoy talking to people person to person. I really enjoy going out to a crowd of people, to a classroom, to a gathering of people who want to hear my story. I prefer that to frankly, to reading the book, okay? That's where I'm re-energized that way.
That's the performer in Ossie.
Und wo gefallen sie spritz von
With a violinist for a father, Ossie's interest in music was sparked at a young age. After the war, his popularity exploded as he led the entertainment group in the Israeli military and began to sell tickets for people to come to see him sing and play the accordion.
He easily could have been a writer as well as a musician.
I'm getting a lot of notes from people who have read the book and phone calls, and a whole bunch of them say, have you started working on your next book, you know? I say, why would you like me to write another book? Because we know that you had a really interesting life, and we would like to know what happened after you survived the Holocaust.
After all these years, and with a push from his wife Selma, Ossie was finally ready to tell his story.
And I can only say it was an honor and a privilege.
With Corinne Joy Brown helping to transfer years of pain to the page.
I'm very happy with the book. And I'm very happy that I had Corinne, who agreed to sit down with me. You know, I'm not very good sitting and dealing with things. I'm more of a person who likes to move back and forth, do things. But it worked out so beautifully, and I'm very much indebted to her willingness and her ability to do that.
And we, of course, commend Ossie and his family for his incredible bravery. Now, if you want to purchase the book, Escape to the Tatras by Oscar Sladek and Corinne Joy Brown, you can do so wherever books are sold. We'll be right back.